Here's what's coming up on today's show.
When markets get volatile, now's the time to start controlling what you can control.
Correct.
And taking advantage of things. It's opportune that markets were high and they're starting to get volatile. Now's the time where we start talking to our clients about, well, what steps can I take and what can I do to really grasp the things that I can control, remove some of that uncertainty, and control the emotions out of the gate.
Welcome to the Income for Life Show. If you're looking for some common sense retirement planning ideas and want to hear how we make the complex financial world simple, then listen up so you can learn how you can stay retired. The Income for Life Show is powered by Folds of Honor, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to providing educational scholarships to the families of America's fallen and disabled service members. Now, here are your hosts, Matt Nelson and Nick Schilling.
Welcome to the Income for Life Show, powered by Folds of Honor. This is your host, Matt Nelson, along with Nick Schilling. Thank you very much for listening in today on your busy day, and we hope that you find some really good content and value here on the Income for Life Show. If you are driving down the road today and you are wanting to learn more about Income for Life and how you can stay retired, visit us online at incomeforlife.org. And again, that is incomeforlife.org. And like I said, once again, I'm here with Nick Schilling. Nick, how is your day going today with you, bud?
Going great. Back up and at it after a long Labor Day weekend and excited to talk about some stuff today.
You bet. And it was a great weekend. Hopefully everybody listening had a very good holiday and a very good long weekend there. But what we're going to do is we're going to dive into a little bit about some of the things that we talked about last week on our previous show whenever we were talking about the COVID and the markets and how this virus is affecting the markets. And we want to start our show talking about that for a little bit. And the reason that we're wanting to do that is because we are then going to begin discussing the cost of waiting. And when it comes to retirement planning, the cost of waiting can be drastic, and it's very difficult right now given the COVID stuff, what is going on, Nick. I think that what we're going to discuss a little bit from last episode and moving into right now with some of those companies that we were discussing, it has a drastic effect when it comes into how long people wait, their cost of waiting in retirement, how they see the market going. So if you would, Nick, why don't we kind of dive in a little bit about what has happened with the markets since our last show with those 5 tech companies that we were discussing before. What's been going on with those up to today?
Perfect. And thanks, Matt. Yeah, today is kind of emblematic of what Matt and I were talking about. We want to just bring it up today to kind of bring that conversation a little bit full circle before we segue into a connecting idea that we like to talk to clients about. But you'll see today in the market, right after Labor Day, the market is sliding. It's going negative and going negative pretty significantly. We are not saying that this is the beginning of the end and everybody needs to worry. But what we talked about in the last show was that the rise in markets, this V-shaped recovery that we've felt and seen over the last 3 or 4 months since the pandemic kind of took the bottom out of the market, wasn't fundamentally balanced in the way that it was rising and the reason it was rising. So what we're seeing right now is maybe some of the air coming out of that balloon when not everything is perfect, meaning people were waiting on this second round of stimulus from the government to kind of keep this train a-moving and keep markets rising. That's been delayed. We don't know when that's going to come. When it comes, we don't know what it's going to look like. And when you start to look at some of the numbers that are coming out regarding our economic output that is underlying what's happening, what we're seeing is people want to start selling this market. They're not exactly sure what to do. There is apprehension as to what's going on, and uncertainty creates fear in the market, and they start to sell. Well, the first thing that's going to sell is the things that have been rising oh so quickly the past 4 months, which are the tech stocks that Matt, you and I talked about last time, that have risen so greatly and have really kind of rose the overall tide of the market throughout, and they're the ones that are getting hit the worst right now. All 11 sectors of the S&P 500 are down, but it's really being drugged down by the tech stocks that we talked about before that had the rapid rise and are now feeling the worst of it when things start to settle.
And let's talk about that real quick, because that's an important aspect that people need to understand. And maybe understand is not the right word. They just need to kind of be conscious of it. You don't necessarily have to understand all the moving parts of it, but you need to, from a 10,000-foot view, you kind of need to understand how much these tech companies have a play in the markets. And with how things are adjusting a little bit, obviously the COVID world is still causing all sorts of ups and downs and ebbs and flows, and nobody knows what's going on right on top of an election year. And all the things that we talked about last week are still very much in play. And that inconsistency, if you would, is where we really get into the fear factor when it comes to proper retirement planning, because so many people are right there on the edge of, okay, well, yeah, my accounts are now back. And Nick and I, you and I were talking about this before we came on the show. People's accounts are back. So, hey, I'm back to where I was in February, for example, or I'm just going to ride this out a little bit more. But the problem with that is you're looking backwards. The hindsight is 2020 sort of an idea, which is fine. But when you're looking forward, and you're now saying, okay, now my accounts are back, right? I got my account numbers back up to where they were. What do you think is going to happen over the next 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, whatever it might be, moving forward when you are so close to retirement age? And that's where the fear comes in with so many people, and the pausing or the stalling, or I don't know what's right, I don't know what's wrong, but I'm absolutely scared to death of what's happening in the markets, and I don't want to have this money that has just recovered fully back into a market again. That is all over the place. Wouldn't you agree?
I agree completely, and it's one of the staples that we talk about all the time is trying to remove the emotional aspect of the decision-making when it comes to your finances. Lots of times, and especially as you creep closer to retirement, we hear this from our clients all the time, almost the more attached to that nest egg that you've worked so hard and saved so diligently for, when you get up in the morning, you're having your morning coffee, you read the paper, or you turn on the news, whenever you see whatever the ticker symbol is showing, if it's green, you're going to have a good day. If it's red, you start to worry and you're having a bad day, because you know that it's almost out of your control at that standpoint. Your account balances, your retirement savings, your lifestyle is almost wrapped up in what's happening within the financial markets. And one of the things we try to talk about is removing the emotional aspect of it. You can't remove it all, but there's lots of things that you can do within your retirement plan to make sure that when you wake up in the morning, your day, your week, and the rest of your year is not tied to what's happening in the financial markets. And there's lots of steps that we can take to do that. And we look at it from the beginning as when markets get volatile, now is the time, if they're up or down, but when markets get volatile, now's the time to start controlling what you can control.
Correct.
And taking advantage of things. It's opportune that markets were high and they're starting to get volatile. Now's the time where we start talking to our clients about, well, what steps can I take and what can I do to really grasp the things that I can control, remove some of that uncertainty, and control the emotions out of the gate.
Exactly. And that ties right into what we talk about on every one of our shows, which is the 3 C's of retirement. That is something that you can control with your retirement planning. And just to paraphrase what Nick and I always talk about when it comes to the 3 C's, of course, you can learn all about the 3 C's on our website at incomeforlife.org. Just click on the 3 C's button and you can learn all about it. But the 3 C's are your checkbook, your calendar, and your clock. Those are things that you can control. Your checkbook, how much is in there? Calendar, how many times will it continue? What day of the month will it continue to be coming in? And the clock, how long will that last? So whenever you are thinking about proper retirement planning, and then you also take into account COVID, market volatility, all of these things that Nick just explained, and the market is up or the market is down, my accounts are up, my accounts are down, who's going to be president? We got an election coming here in a couple of months. Whatever the scenario might be, the thing that you can count on is guaranteed income. So checkbook, calendars, and clocks, the 3 C's of retirement, are incredibly important, especially in today's highly volatile world. Wouldn't you agree?
I agree completely. And when we look at what income means, income is important when you're saving, when you're working, when you're spending money on your kids and building your life and your family. Obviously, it's really important. It becomes paramount when you're in retirement, because that nest egg, nobody's paying you except yourself.
Correct.
And you got to figure out what's going to balance the Social Security that you're going to get, maybe some pensions if you were lucky enough to do it, figuring out what lifestyle you want to live, how long you want that lifestyle to last, and what you're going to do to tap into those savings that you've so diligently saved for and sacrificed for, and how you're going to guarantee those, how you're going to remove the emotional aspect of investing off of what you need to live your lifestyle. Take control of that and let the other stuff kind of go. If it's with the market and it's got a plan, we can help with that too. But you're not tied to what the balance of that statement is day in and day out. And your day is not tied, emotionally invested to what the balance is in that, because you know that those paychecks from Social Security and your guaranteed income are going to come in the 15th or the 23rd or whatever day of the month it is for you. You know that that's going to happen, and you can buy bread, go on vacation, fill gas, and do what you want to do throughout the rest of your retirement lifestyle.
And that is so important for people to think about it. Whether you're driving down the road right now listening to us in your vehicle, or you're sitting in front of your computer listening to us, it's important to understand a lot of what Nick just explained, which is the emotion. The emotion of retirement is awful for a lot of people. It is the biggest decision or decisions that they're going to be making in their retirement life moving
Massive
forward.
shift. Yep.
And that is what we call the retirement shift. And we discuss this with all of our clients because we know that every one of them is probably going to go through the retirement shift in one way or another, and the time of when they do it or the age that they do it will vary. But the easiest way that we have been able to explain the retirement shift is that mental transition from your working and your accumulation years of your 401k, for example, or your brokerage accounts, and transitioning that over to your retirement shift, which is preservation and distribution of that. So the easiest way to explain that, and with me, and again, Nick, you and I talk about this stuff all the time, I want to do our best to try to make this as simple and easy to understand for people as possible, because you and I both agree, Nick, that that's the way retirement planning should be.
Correct.
Safe, easy, but easy to understand. So the retirement shift is very similar to trading in that sports car for a minivan. And the way that I like to explain this is whenever you were younger, maybe you or somebody you knew had a sports car, right? It was fun. Right? You could
Correct.
You'd go 0 to 60 in 3.9 seconds, and it was a fun car, right? I mean, everybody listening, maybe you or somebody that you knew had a sports car when you were young.
Correct.
So that car didn't get very good on gas. That car was maybe not the safest car, but it was a lot of fun. So then, a little bit later in life, you meet that significant other person, maybe you get married and you start a family. A lot of times, the first thing that gets traded in is that old sports car for that dreaded minivan, right? Everybody knows the mentality. Whether you did it or not, you know somebody that did that. So now you have this sports car, you got to trade it in for that minivan. Why? It's safety rated. It'll get the kids to soccer practice. It'll get them to grandma and grandpa's house without breaking the bank and gas. All of these things that go into the minivan. So by trading in that sports car for the minivan, it doesn't make the sports car manufacturer wrong. You just outaged it. You just outgrew it. You got to a different place in your life where stability and safety are more important than 0 to 60 in 3.9 seconds and getting 6 miles to the gallon.
Correct.
So that is retirement shift. It's the exact same thing. By shifting over to a distribution plan, it doesn't make the stock market wrong. You just outgrew it. You got to a different place in your life where the safety and security and the guarantees are more important than the risk. What are your thoughts on the shift, Nick?
You know, I think the shift is so important, and it really is a mental shift as much as it is, and even more than a financial shift. You know, at that time in your life when you're building your family, and as guys, and we're giving up the sports car or the motorcycle,
or whatever your thing is,
to then buy the sedan or the minivan, that may be tough for us, but we see our buddies at the same age doing the same thing. It's kind of out there, visible, and people are doing it. So we can kind of acquiesce to what our wife wants and what the family needs. And it's an easier shift. When it comes to planning for retirement, a lot of that stuff is not talked about amongst friends and family. So we don't know what everybody else is doing. You're kind of in this thing of I'm emotionally tied to it. I don't know what to do. We're at this time in our life where certain friends are retired, other ones are saving. We don't know what we need to do. Who do we talk to? How do we make these decisions? And how do we really think through the mental and the financial shift that has to happen when you're talking about retirement, when you're in retirement, and how you're going to start going from being an entrepreneur and paying yourself or being employed and having somebody else pay you to the only thing that's going to pay you is the Social Security that you've contributed and the stuff that you've saved.
And that is so important because now that gravity of that situation, the weight that is being pushed on you, not only is just tough just internally with yourself, but at that particular time in your life, you're also getting slammed by a million different marketing ideas. You see every TV commercial talking about this and that and retirement planning, financial planning, and maybe you're also getting 3 or 4 dinner invites a day to go to workshops and seminars and let me tell you our way.
Medicare, all the different decisions that happen at that time.
New drug plans, new Medicare plans, all these things are just coming at you just as quickly as possible. And who's right and who's wrong? It's going to be a very difficult decision whenever one person says, oh, I'm the only one that's right. I can do this the best for you. Then you go meet with another person. They say, no, that guy's wrong. I'm the only one that can then do what's right for you. It's whenever you're going to, 5 or 6 different people, it is very similar to if you want to go back to kind of the sports car and the minivan thing. If you went onto that dealership and you drove that sports car there and you tell the guy, hey, we're looking to have a family. I need to trade this sports car in for this minivan. What would you say if that guy looked right in your eyes and said, what are you talking about? Sports cars are perfect for raising kids with. Yeah. You're like, wait a minute. No, I need this because, we have a different place in our life. So you got to be careful. So I'm a firm believer. Take it all as noise. When you're looking at who's marketing to you, who's talking to you, look at it as noise and focus on the numbers. Because proper retirement planning is an elementary mathematical equation as long as you know where the numbers line up inside the equation.
Correct.
And that's where people start getting confused. That's why they wait. That's why they have a paralysis by analysis sort of a mentality. They don't know who's right, who's wrong, and that is what we call here the cost of waiting. It
Correct.
is the cost of waiting. So let's dive into that a little bit here, Nick, because there's so many different costs, if you would, that go into cost of waiting. And then what we're also going to do is we're going to go through a couple of examples that we have some data that we are going to discuss with you. These are hypothetical data. It was at one time based on real-time numbers and ideas with an exact client of ours that a few years ago was looking at, do I start my retirement plan now or do I wait? These numbers that we're going to rattle off here in a little bit are going to be hypothetical, but it'll give us a good idea of what a cost of waiting scenario could look like, okay? So let's go through first, Nick, if you would. Talk to us a little bit about your ideas, your thoughts of what cost of waiting means to you.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. And I think cost of waiting, another topic that we try to hit on each and every time, is so core to what we're trying to do when we're creating a financial plan. The cost of waiting is not that you should make immediate decisions, but it is a thought process of how are we going to make our decisions and what time within our life, what time within the markets is an opportune thing to start taking control of what we can control and not feeling overwhelmed by the stuff that's out of our control. We really look at it, and again, to go back to the same thing we've been talking about before, is in our mind, there's kind of 2 main costs of waiting. There is an emotional cost or toll that happens with waiting. The longer we wait to take control of what we can control, the more our mind and emotions are wrapped up in things that we can't, the market movements that are out there doing things that we can't control. If we take control of what we can control, when we can control it, it removes a lot of that emotional response to those things. And then there's a financial / we'll call it mathematical cost to waiting. There's actually fundamentally a cost of waiting to take control of these things that we'll talk about. And I think that scenario that you're going to go through, Matt, is going to give a great example of what that financial and mathematical cost can do. And I think people can go onto our website or email us and we can show them this scenario. So sometimes it might be easier to walk through it, then be able to get it from us, look at it, re-listen, or give us a call and be able to walk through something like this as we go through it.
And that is the best way to do it. So if you are listening right now, and as we start explaining some of these examples that will have numbers in it, which can maybe get confusing if you're just driving down the road and you're like, well, I would like to see that. If you guys have that available, can you send it over to me? Absolutely. You can just shoot one of us an email, either matt@incomeforlife.org or nick@incomeforlife.org, and just request this information. The cost of waiting information, you can just call it that if you want, and we'll email it over to you. So it might be a scenario where if you are listening and you do want this, and then you want to replay the show while you have it in front of you, that would help. But we're going to do our best to try to go through this information and explain it to everyone in a way that makes sense. Because the big thing about retirement, and Nick, you and I talk about it all the time, is retiring is easy, but staying retired is difficult. 10,000 people per day retire. We know this as a statistical fact. 10,000 retire per day, but staying retired is the difficult part. So whenever we're talking about things that you maybe have often heard of, like, sequence of returns or things that are maybe out of your control or the market volatility or whatever it might be, the key to proper retirement planning is guaranteed income. And what we're talking about today with the cost of waiting is, when does that decision get made? Are you the type of person that understands that mental retirement shift needs to happen about 5 to 10 years before you retire? Or are you the type of person that says, I'm going to wait till the day I retire and then do it? Okay. There's no right or wrong answer to that.
All depends on their scenario.
Everybody's a little bit different. It depends on how you want to do it. But what we are going to discuss today is just some ideas about how to do that in the best way possible and how to do that in the best financial way possible.
Perfect.
So let's jump into a little bit here, Nick. And what I'm looking at is the first thing is what we call the impact of losses. And Nick, you and I are looking at this right now. And what this discusses is how much in a percentage it takes to make up a loss in the market.
And painting that thing of it's the financial or mathematical cost that sometimes people don't even realize. What does a 20% drop in the market actually mean when we want to recover from that at some time?
Right. And if we're trying to recover from that, very similar to what we just did in March.
Correct.
Exactly what we did in 07 and 08, exactly what we did in 2002. So the numbers don't lie. And it's important that whenever you're looking at these things, you look at the numbers. So this is a spreadsheet that Nick and I are looking at that you can request, again, matt@incomeforlife.org or nick@incomeforlife.org, but it's the impact of loss. And it gives a loss percentage that is in red, and then it gives a gain percentage of what the gain is required to make up for that loss. So, for example, if the market drops 20%, it takes about a 25% gain to make up for that 20%. So, Nick, explain that a little bit. We're looking at, 30% loss takes 43% to make it up. 40% takes 67% to make it up. Some people don't understand that. They'll see this and say, well, okay, I went down 20%, I gained 20%, so I'm back to good.
Correct.
Why is that mentality not accurate?
Well, one of those things is it simply is something that people don't think about. And it's a mathematical thing that, it's simple once you bring it up to somebody. When we talk about it with a client, if you have $100,000 and you lose 50% of it, now you have $50,000. Well, to make back that 50 that you lost, you have to have not a 50% return on that $50,000. You have to have a 100% return to get back that 50. So it's just simple math to be able to do, but it's not something that many people think about. And it really goes to the conversation that we have a lot with clients, Matt, as when you're planning for retirement, when you're within 10 years of retirement and in retirement, losses hurt your plan way more than gains will ever help your plan.
100%.
So when you've saved so diligently for retirement, you've contributed to your IRAs and your 401ks and your Roth accounts, and you got other savings at the bank and in other investments, you've done what you needed to do. You've built up that nest egg. Losses to that account, 10%, 5%, 25%, hurt way more than an extra 20.
Correct.
You've done the work to save. That's the major deal. Growing that by 10%, taking the risk to grow that by 10% may not be what you need. Securing that bottom line, securing that foundation is probably the way that we want to look at it.
And here's another way to explain what Nick just said on this impact of losses, where he just said that if you go down 50%, it takes 100% to get you back to good.
Yep.
Right? Okay. So let's use that for a very quick math. Let's say you have $100,000 for easy math. You drop 50%, right?
Yep.
You go down to $50,000, correct? A lot of people say, well, all I need is 50% to go back. No, it's your mentality is off of a $100,000 number. You're not at $100,000 anymore. You're at 50. So now if you need a 50%, you're at 50,000. 50% of 50,000
It's $25,000.
is $25,000. So you're not back to your 100. So that's why it takes a full 100% to make up a 50% loss.
And beyond the mathematics of it, what happens then is people then they stress too much. They try to make up that loss either too quickly or too aggressively. They then go too aggressive in their accounts. They try to make that up, which then can compound depending on what's happening in the marketplace. All of a sudden, if you're going too aggressive for your constitution, your emotional say uncle point, then all of a sudden everything gets out of whack. You're way too attached to this account. You're going too aggressive with your investments to try to make that up so quickly.
And you know you're going too aggressive.
You know you are. If the volatility starts spiking again, then all of a sudden we're back and we've doubled down on it. And that's the last thing we want to do. But the easiest way to do that is to not take the 50% loss to begin with.
Correct.
Understand where your risk constitution is. How much can you stomach on a daily, weekly, yearly, or annual time period, and what plan do we have to do to meet that need?
And age has a factor on that. I mean,
huge factor.
The older you are, the less risk you want to take.
Correct.
You know, you don't want to take on those same risks that you did, you know, whenever you were younger. And the best way for me to explain that is I explain it to my clients by using a skateboard approach. Whenever you were younger, and you saw a skateboard on the ground, you're 10 years old, 12 years old, whatever, you'll jump on that skateboard and you'll ride it. Right?
Indestructible.
And you were indestructible. And if you fell, you just got up, you got back on it again, and you kept going. Okay, take that exact same skateboard, but now you're a little bit older. You're mid-30s or 40s. You might get a foot on that. You might ride it a little bit, but you're a little bit more concerned about falling off in your 30s or 40s than you were when you were 10 or 12. Now, you're 60. You won't even look at that skateboard. You'll pick it up and throw it in the trash.
Yeah, it's in the garage sale pile.
It is in the garage sale pile. You're not even going to be anywhere near that thing, let alone get on it and try to ride it. So that risk approach applies in retirement too. The older you get, the less risky you want to be. But here's some of these numbers back on this impact of losses, Nick, that we were looking at, because nobody knows what's going to happen moving forward, right? Everybody kind of has some ideas of, hey, maybe the Dow will hit 30, right? Maybe it'll go to 35. Maybe it'll drop to 15. Nobody knows, but all they know is it's scary.
Yeah.
It's very emotional. It's very scary right now.
There's a lot happening quickly.
So when you're looking at, for example, a 50% loss takes 100% gain to make it back. Let's just go back and look at 2000 to 2002. The S&P 500 from 2000 to 2002 went down 49%.
There's your 50.
There's your 50 right there. But if you look at 2007 to 2009, the most recent, went down 57%. The NASDAQ back in 2000 to 2002 went down 78%. Just so everybody knows, on our chart here, a 78% loss takes almost a 400% gain.
Correct.
To make that back. So as you're listening, and our goal here is not to scare you by any means. It's just, this is math. This is how retirement is. And we know that if you're listening today, you have these same type of concerns, these same sort of feelings, because you're probably shifting that mental shift into retirement, and you don't know where to go. You don't know
Correct.
how to start. The start is very simple to us. It's just give us a call, and we'll get this information over to you, or shoot us an email. Visit incomeforlife.org. Follow up with us, and we'll be able to explain this information in a way that makes sense, so that when you retire, you can stay retired. Now, we also discussed, we had a couple of different examples that we wanted to go through with you here. And what I explained just a moment ago is a story from a client of ours from several years ago. The numbers will be a little bit off. Well, I'm not worried about the numbers exactly, because this is a hypothetical scenario, but for this particular couple, it was dead on with them.
Yep.
Back a few years ago. So everybody will kind of understand the concept of what we're talking about. But I'm just going to call these people John and Jane Doe for this purpose. But back when I was meeting with these people, John Doe, he was 60 years old, and his goal was to retire at 66. Sounds familiar.
Yep.
We meet with these people all the time, Nick. I'm starting to plan a little bit. I want to go look at what's out there. My goal is to retire at 66.
Yep.
Okay, fine. He wanted to wait till 66 because at that time he could maximize his Social Security.
That was full retirement for him.
Full retirement for him. And his spouse, Jane, she was 58. So they were just getting going, and they had a combined income at that time of $50,000 a year. That's what they wanted to replace. That was their paycheck. They wanted to replace that. And their Social Security amount, they already did the math, and they got their statements and all that. That was going to be $36,000 a year.
Combined.
Yeah. So $50,000 is what they needed just to maintain bills. Whatever above and beyond that was gravy, right?
Yep.
But that's what they had to have, was $50,000.
Yep.
Every single year. They were going to get $36,000 a year from Social Security. So if you do the math, $50,000 minus 36 is a $14,000 a year gap.
Yep.
We call it a guaranteed lifetime income gap, right? So as I was talking to him, he was telling me, "Matt, I'm only 60 years old. I got time.
We're still saving.
I'm still saving. I'm still waiting. I'm still working."
Yep.
Right? I still got my job. I still got my paycheck. Does that sound familiar, Nick, with a lot of people that you talk to?
So many, yeah.
And that's what they do. So we did a cost of waiting analysis with John and Jane Doe, and used the $14,000 a year gap. What it would cost if they started their plan 6 years ahead of time.
Yep.
And how much it would cost to satisfy that gap. And then every year, what the difference of that cost would be, all the way till if they waited till they were 66 and got a plan going right then and there.
And that's to guarantee that $14,000 gap for the rest of their lives.
No matter what.
Correct.
Guaranteed no matter what. So at 60 years old, if you got the plan going and then let it roll up for 6 years, that $14,000 a year income gap would require a commitment from them of a little over $172,000 to do that.
Correct.
So get it going, let it grow, let it roll up, $172,000 to do it if they did it today.
Again, starting at 60, taking control of what they can control has a certain cost to it. And as Matt kind of goes through this scenario, you'll see as they wait, as they get to 61, 62, 63, the difference, because you're getting closer to that age when that paycheck's no longer there, the difference that it's going to cost for them to guarantee that income going forward is going to be pretty stark.
It's interesting to see these numbers. So again, 60 years old, needs $14,000 a year, going to cost $172 and change thousand to do it.
Yep.
At age 61, again, same scenario, still need $14,000. If you waited till 61, that $172 now is $184,000, almost $185,000. So that 1 year was a $13,000 difference.
About an extra year's income.
About an extra. At age 62, again, same scenario, but now we're waiting an extra year. Takes almost $198,000 to accomplish that $14,000 a year. Age 63, $211,000. 64, $226,000. 65, $242,000, and now we're 66. Now he's waited in this scenario. He's waited that full 6 years. I want to retire now. I need $14,000 starting now immediately, as opposed to the 6-year wait. That 66-year-old now needing $14,000 a year, $259,000 to accomplish that $14,000 a year goal. Now again, you can email matt@incomeforlife.org or nick@incomeforlife.org. You can get this report. You can get this information emailed over to you. So if you do listen to our show again, you can see it and you can just follow along. But the best way to be able to explain this is doing this math. Doing this math. So, Nick, the cost of waiting in this scenario is over $86,000.
Yes.
So if he would have started this plan at 60 instead of waiting till 66, it would have saved him $86,000 in change.
Correct.
Makes sense, right? But now, to make this as easy as we can make it for somebody that's listening driving down the road, if you remember, they have a $50,000 income need, or how much they were making. Remember, they had a $50,000 income amount.
Yeah.
This just cost them $86,000 by waiting. Their cost of waiting was $86,000.
Correct.
So a better way to put this cost of waiting just cost John 1.73 years of working. He is now working his next almost 2 years for free.
Correct.
Think about that. Who wants to do that?
And that's a great way to kind of, distill that down into something that our clients can understand. And another thing that the conversation, as we dig deeper with it, is a lot of times they're like, well, that $86,000, $87,000, if I wait and the market keeps going the way it's going, I can make up in appreciation that $86,000 or $87,000 and I'll be as good or better.
Yeah.
And that is the exact conversation where we really start getting into, you're exactly right. But that is something that we can't control. We don't know if the appreciation in the stock market and your specific investments are going to do exactly what they did the last 5 years, the next 5 or 6 years going forward.
Especially what's going on right now.
Correct. And when you take in the environment specifically today in September of 2020, that volatility is astronomical. It is even scarier as to what's going to happen. But no matter what, it is uncertain. And the way that we look at retirement planning is take control of what you can control. Let's make certain what we can make certain when we can do it. And let the appreciation happen after you've already laid that concrete and built that foundation.
And if it happens, it happens.
Correct.
If your account happens to grow and ends up you hit it right and everything is good, then wonderful.
Correct.
That just means that you have more money to play with and enjoy retirement with. There's
Correct.
Nothing but good that can happen, because now you have this other guaranteed already set. So I hear people all the time, they're always trying to time this, right? I'm trying to time this the best way that I can. There's no such thing. It's all your best educated guess of how this would happen. So you just have to make that decision, and that decision comes from that retirement shift. You just have
Correct.
to have the mental distinction of saying, I cannot afford to potentially lose this money. I need this guaranteed. Kind of like ripping the Band-Aid off, right? You got to do it. You just have to make that decision that we have to shift.
Correct.
We have got to change. And that's where so many people get lost. And that's where they get confused. And now, like we talked about earlier, got all these people hammering them with all this marketing stuff. And every time you turn the TV on, there's a financial commercial.
Yep.
What is right and what is wrong, it's difficult. But proper retirement planning, like Nick and I always talk about, when we talk about the 3 C's of retirement, that paycheck, the checkbook, the calendar, and the clock, every time you open up your bank account and you get paid from Social Security and you see that Social Security amount is now in your checkbook, what everybody does is goes,
Yeah.
I got paid.
What we say every time is no matter what age you are, working, saving, pre-retirement, in retirement, making a plan And working that plan is what you need to start doing, and you need to start doing it immediately. You can't have the cost of waiting be out of your control. And one of the things that we talk about with clients is it's an amazing thing with us as human beings of stuff that we kind of put out of mind and stuff that we take control of. Almost everybody makes a list when they go to the grocery store to make sure that they're getting what they need to get. But then when it comes to something as important as retirement planning in our lifestyle, we just kind of hope, and we hope the market goes up, and we hope that us taking 4 or 5% out actually works and everything kind of goes in order. But when we're talking about the $150 we're going to spend at the grocery store that day to pick some stuff up, and your wife gives you a list so that you don't mess up, we'll take that and we'll work that list and cross everything off and make sure that we bring back what we're supposed to bring back. When it comes to retirement planning, unfortunately, we sit down with way too many people that haven't even put in that simplified work of making a list and working that plan, and that's what we try to establish for them.
And it's interesting that you're using that example of a grocery store and how, people will put more thought into something along those lines than they do into their own retirement future. And there's been studies upon studies done where it has been proven that people put more effort into planning a vacation than they do planning their own retirement. And it happens all the time.
Yep.
And I understand it to a point because it's so confusing. It has the ability to be confusing, and especially when you're hearing from so many different people that are all saying different things. And that's why Nick and I here at Income for Life, we try to take that anxiety out of it by just looking at the data, looking at the numbers, looking at, okay, you need X amount of guaranteed income. What is the most affordable way we can do that? Or you got X amount in retirement assets. How much guaranteed lifetime income can those said assets produce for you? Whichever way you want to go. But the neat thing and the refreshing thing that we hear from every one of our clients all over the country is they have moved from a hope-so plan to a know-so plan. Now I know.
Love that.
Now I know what I have. Now I know what I'm getting is no longer a hope-so. Because a hope-so plan is exactly that. Boy, I'm hoping that the market's going to do. I'm hoping that the bank accounts are finally going to clean up and get me a better rate of return. I'm hoping for the best.
Yep.
We don't do that.
Hope's not a plan.
Hope is not a plan. This is a no-so plan. So our whole idea around today's show, when we're talking about the cost of waiting, again, is not designed to scare anyone. That's not our intent at all. It's just numbers, and it's just the way it is. And if you want to be able to understand a no-so plan, the easiest way is to get a hold of us. Visit incomeforlife.org, request some information, and either myself or Nick, one of us, will give you a call. We'll discuss this in very easy to understand terms that absolutely makes sense so that hopefully you'll be able to stay retired.
That's what we want.
So today's show, again, we were brought to you by incomeforlife.org and foldsofhonor.org. We hope that you have had a very good opportunity to learn a little bit more about who we are and what we do here at Income for Life. And before we wrap up today's show, Nick, this is right after the holiday.
Correct. Yeah,
Labor
Day.
Right after Labor Day is when we're doing this show today. And this Thursday is a big day.
Some exciting stuff coming up here in Kansas.
This is football season.
'Tis the season.
And obviously our world champion, Kansas City Chiefs,
That they are
kicking off their the first game of the year against the Houston Texans, which, if I'm correct, I think our Chiefs came back and beat the Texans last year in the playoffs.
They did.
Right?
Yeah, they did.
I think they were down, or there was some issues in that game, and then I think we won and came back rather convincingly.
Second half looked real good.
Yeah, okay. Yep. So naturally with our show here, we're going to discuss on the end, like we always do, our world champion Kansas City Chiefs. And once again, we didn't get to Pat.
Yeah. We'll extend that invite, though.
We have an ingoing invitation to future Hall of Famer Pat Mahomes for every single show to join us on the show, and sadly we always run out of time, and we can never get to Pat.
Busy weeks, yeah.
And we're giving him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt this week because it's first game week and it's an early game. It's not the Sunday.
Yeah.
So Pat, naturally, we'll try to get you on again next show. But,
good luck with the game plan.
Good luck with the game coming, and we'll try our best to get you going for next time.
Excited to have him on next time.
That's right. Again, thank you for listening. Again, visit incomeforlife.org, learn all about us. And just like we always close every show, we're going to do our best to give you very inciting ideas about how to properly retire and to stay retired. Thank you very much for listening today. Enjoy the rest of your week, and go Chiefs.
Thanks for listening to the Income for Life show. If you have any questions about something we talked about today or want to get in touch with the Income for Life team, just give a call to 833-450-3068. That's 833-450-3068. You can also go online to incomeforlife.org and check the description of today's show for any relevant resources and contact information. You can also find the podcast on all major podcasting apps, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and many more locations. The Income for Life show is powered by Folds of Honor, a 501c3 nonprofit organization dedicated to providing educational scholarships to the families of America's fallen and disabled service members. For more information, visit foldsofhonor.org. Information provided on today's show is for informational purposes only and does not constitute investment, tax, or legal advice. Information is obtained from sources that are deemed to be reliable, but their accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed. Always consult with a qualified professional before taking any action.